All right. Let's see. Ah, it's good to see everyone. Um, Great to be back with you again this week. Um, I wanted to share something that I have. As you can see behind me, there is a nice blue hue, uh, and I have a little side light as well. So it's gonna get my face a little bit, but check it out. I can change the background. Cool, right? Um, anyway, I figured this might be a cool setup. I'm upgrading because Logan is upgrading, and you haven't seen any of his yet, uh, but I'm excited about season three. Um, it's coming up. It's coming up. Not this weekend, but weekend after we record our first episode. I feel like we've taken a longer break than usual, but it's well worth the wait. But anyway, I kind of want to get into um, something that's kind of been on my mind a little bit. Um, I've been reading through, and we're going to be talking about these things in more depth during season three. We're going to have guests on talking about these things. Um, but I just kind of have been thinking a lot about looking at criticism as information. Um, so my girlfriend and I, we've been talking about the Enneagram. I don't know why it comes up, but like every once in a while it'll come up. And I was reading through, my number, and this particular book that I have, it talks about like all of the negative things, right? All the things you have to work past, all the things you have to, and it's like it can be discouraging a little bit, um, because I'm reading those things and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like me. That sounds like something I do. You know, um, So those things can kind of like cut to you, sometimes. Um, another book that I've been reviewing and looking over is The Five Love Languages. Uh, and it was talking about how in a situation where one spouse just hates your guts, like how do you love somebody that hates you? And of course, the counselor he pulls out, what Jesus said, on the Sermon on the Mount about loving your enemies, um, loving those who hate you and persecute you, and all of that. And it was talking about how to perhaps work things out with somebody that hates you, how to restore love. Um, and it was talking about criticism and uh, someone that hates you is likely to criticize you. But rather than looking at that negatively or lashing out, he recommends if someone does, if your spouse that hates you does that to you, just take it as information. Don't respond to it in any way. Just take it as information because that criticism may reveal what they really need. Um, you know, he talks about our love tank. Everybody has a love tank, and most of the time, our criticisms, um, uh, they reveal what we really need and what we really are asking for. The spouse that says, "You don't ever spend time with me." Well, the other spouse can point out, "Well, we did this and we did this," and but what they're seeking is quality time, spending quality time with that person. And maybe they may have gone out on some outing, but it wasn't quality time. They didn't have any, good conversation and things like that. But we're not going to get too far into that. Um, I do want to talk about looking at criticism in this way, though, because criticism is something that most people don't like. Most people aren't looking for criticism. They're not looking to be, you know, for somebody to point out their flaws. Right? Nobody really wants that or desires that. You may say that you do because you want to improve and you want to grow, and that's a wise attitude to have. But none of us really likes. It's kind of like discipline. Like, you don't like discipline, but it is for your good, right? It's for your growth, and so criticism acts in a similar way. um but criticism, whether it's from reading from a book or somebody just nailing you over the head over something that you did, or maybe it wasn't something you did at all, it was just something that perturbed them in some way. um and those things can discourage us. Those things can put us down. um and we've talked a little bit about self encouragement before. But this is definitely an area where we need to focus in sometimes. If we receive criticism, how do we respond to that? Um, in Proverbs chapter 15, there's three verses that I think that really, they kind of tie in together. When you read a lot of Proverbs, it's kind of like a bunch of different things, and they don't seem like they really relate, after chapter 9. Um, but chapter 15, verses 31 through 33, I want us to see if we can kind of look at criticism in this light. The ear that listens to life giving reproof will dwell among the wise. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, and he who listens to reproof gains intelligence. The fear of the Lord is instruction in wisdom, and humility comes before honor. So I think all of those verses kind of point to the fact of, you take criticism as information, right? Um, it's very easy for us to just, we want to lash out, or we want to hold a grudge, or we want to do something that probably we shouldn't, um, because of how we feel about the criticism we've received. Um, but if we just take it as information, and maybe it's information not even about what you specifically have to work on, maybe it's information about the person who's giving you criticism. Maybe they say something to you and it's completely off base and it's just not true, but they charge you with it. I mean, Paul had to deal with that. Several people in the Bible had to deal with that. They were charged with things. Hannah, Eli comes to her and he's like, a woman, you just stop drinking. Just quit this. And she says, no, I'm not drinking. I'm, pouring out my spirit to God. And so he, has to, kind of double back a little bit because of his mistake. But it didn't sound like she was offended or anything like that. Maybe she was. We don't know. But if we take criticisms, and if we take things that we need to work on, or we look at the source of our criticisms and different things like that, we should understand that when we take it just as information, when we take it just as something to know, then we're able to do something more productive with it. If we take it as an insult, right? If we take it as something that's just meant to be hurtful or things like that, it doesn't do anything except make us angry. Uh, so I need to remind myself of this when I'm, especially, I feel like the church here is pretty quiet. I do get some encouragement. There's a few that always are trying to, encourage me, but there's a lot of silence. There's not good or bad either way. Um, and But I need to think about that. But I also need to think about when I'm reading about things or when I understand things about myself. I don't need to be discouraged by that. I need to understand, okay, I can do something with this information, right? Um, we may say, and maybe I'm getting a little too long winded here. Um, we may say, well, I'm just fine the way I am. And that's a bad attitude to have. I hope we don't have that attitude, because as Christians, we're supposed to be aiming for something better. We're supposed to be aiming towards Christ. Uh, we're supposed to be, it's not supposed to be easy, this walk. It's a race that we have to run with endurance. You know, Hebrews chapter 12. We put aside our weights, right? And sin. So there's things about us that are weighing us down that maybe aren't even sinful, but they're not helpful. And there are things that are sinful that we need to put away. Um, so when we realize something about ourselves that we need to change, or we get criticism from somebody else, um, it's a good idea to not just take things personally. Maybe you do take it personally in the fact that, maybe there's a chance for growth or something like that, but respond in a way that's helpful versus, um, lashing out, or becoming depressed, or becoming discouraged. Um, I'll go ahead and say mine. We will revisit this later in the season. On the Enneagram, I'm a 9, right? And so the particular struggle of 9s is that um, they don't want to bother the world, and they don't want the world to bother them. And so they can uh, find it hard to be self-motivated. They procrastinate, things like that. And so when I was reading those things about myself, I'm like, oh, that's true. And I was thinking, well, that's who I am, and so that's, I'm just a procrastinator, and it doesn't help to just think about that and just say, and just be discouraged and say, well, that's a problem that I struggle with. But if I take that as information and say, okay, well, now what can I do with this? Uh, Maybe I can overcome some of those things. I can become more self motivated, a self starter, um, all that good stuff. Um, but anyway, we'll address that some more another time. Uh, I'm very excited about season 3. There it is again. Yeah. Yep, I'm excited for season 3, and excited for all that will bring, all of our guests and things like that. I think since we have taken the break, Logan and I have both said, like, every single time that we're looking forward to season 3, and yeah, I guess we miss it. Like, I know I miss it. I think Logan misses it too, pretty well. So, but anyway, I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. It is Wednesday, so I hope that you have a good time at worship, um, at Bible study this evening, and God bless. Have a good one.